Chapter 6. Rosemary's mouth and tail worked in frenetic harmony as she greedily gulped the bottled milk in Mary's hand. The much-loved pet had just finished the last drop when a car horn and a cloud of dust heralded the arrival of Merv and Esther, Mum and Dad's best townie friends. Merv was a high school teacher, while Esther had worked with Mary's auntie as a ChildFund aid worker 2 years ago. "G'day, Mary. How's Rosemary getting on?" asked Merv as he hopped out of the car. "She's choice, Uncle Merv," Mary replied. Esther walked round the side of the car and smiled warmly at Mary and Rosemary. "I know she's your favourite pet, darling, but your Rosie would earn a lot of money for a family when your auntie and I worked in Kenya," Esther said. Mary frowned. Did Esther mean Rosemary, the creature she loved most next to all her family, would be killed for meat? "In what way, Auntie Esther?" Mary asked quietly, trying to keep tears at bay. "Well, if families kept lambs like Rosemary till they grew into sheep, they could sell them for a profit and then use that money to buy more lambs," Esther said matter-of-factly. Mary couldn't hold back the tears any longer. They pushed against her eyelids and finally spilled down her cheeks like fat raindrops. "Wah!" she cried, her mouth a round O. "You're going to sell my Rosemary to make money!" she hiccuped in between sobs. "Shush, shush," Esther soothed. "No, darling girl, not at all. But it means that Kenyan kids your age can go to school instead of having to work hard in the fields." Mary sniffled. "Their lives must be hard if school is better than work," she whispered. Esther agreed. "It sure is. And while the lambs are growing, they provide other things like wool for their families," she said. "Not to mention poo for their crops." "Really?" said Mary. In the end, why did everything always come back to poo, she thought.
Chapter 7. The grown-ups stood around the car talking adult nonsense. Rugby, weather, and New Zealand's next top model. Her Auntie Esther continued. "The best thing is that when the lamb grew up to be a sheep, she could meet another sheep and they could have little lambs together. Given time, the family in Kenya could have a whole flock of sheep." This seemed like a grand idea. "How do sheep make lambs, Auntie Esther?" asked Mary. The adults fell silent. There was a pause. "Merv, can you tell Mary how sheep make lambs?" Uncle Merv was looking down at his feet. He cleared his throat, then kicked a small pebble. In the distance, the crickets chirped. "Well," said Uncle Merv, I really think your dad's the expert here." Her dad looked off into the distance. A rooster crowed on a nearby farm. Mary, when Rosemary grows up, she might meet a nice young boy sheep. Yeah, they might go and eat some grass together, maybe watch some animal ballet in the hay barn and eventually decide to get their own paddock. And then one night, when it's a bit cold, they might cuddle together for warmth. And 147 days later, lambs." "Wow," exclaimed Mary. "I hope they get married first." The adults laughed. Chapter 8. Mary's head was spinning with all this new sheepy information. She wanted to write it down and get her ideas together. She quickly made her way to her bedroom, stopping briefly in the kitchen to grab a glass of milk and a cookie Mum had just baked. Chocolate chip, yum. She examined the cookie. The chips did look suspiciously like Rosemary's poo. She gave Rosemary a look. Rosemary cocked her head and stared back. "I know your poo is great to make paper with and put on the garden, Rosemary, but surely not in cookies." She gingerly bit into one and was relieved to be met by the familiar chocolate taste. "Phew," Mary said. "That's one thing I'm glad you're not useful for. Now, let's get thinking, Rosie Roo. With Rosemary watching the activity from her bed, Mary pulled out her blackboard and began writing up notes. So a lamb, that's you, Rosemary, is great for 1. Snuggling, 2. Playing with, 3. Making paper out of your poo, 4. Making cheese and getting milk from, 5. Fertilising the earth, and 6. Telling secrets to. That's 6 things. Wow, that's heaps. Way more useful than a pair of red shoes, she thought, even if they did make her dance like a princess. She carried on writing on her blackboard. If every family in a country that Auntie visited with ChildFund got given a sheep for Christmas, then there would be... She began writing out a complicated mathematical equation and muttering her workings under her breath. 6 times 100 sheep on our farm, divided by the number of countries multiplied by the amount of sheep, squared to the power of 98, 7, 8, 9, 10, would equal... Lots! Rosemary, lots of happy families with helpful sheep this Christmas. I've got it. Maths wasn't Mary's strongest subject, but she was confident with her workings. Our next problem is, how do we get them there? She paused to think. I've got it! I could build a giant catapult! She looked at Rosemary. The lamb just stared back blankly. You're right, Rosemary. Where would I get an elastic band that big? Scrap that idea. She slumped down next to Rosemary and took a thoughtful bite from her cookie. How was she going to get all those sheep to all those far-off countries?
Chapter 9. After sitting with Rosemary trying to think of different ways to get sheep overseas, Mary's brain started to hurt. Mum always told Mary to get some fresh air when that happened, so she picked Rosemary up off the bed and headed outside. She could hear the faint sound of a car coming down the gravel road. "Come on, Rosemary, it's Kim. He might have some mail for us." Kim was from Vietnam and had come to Aotearoa with his family when he was only 5 years old. He was now 23. Really old, thought Mary. Kim had been teaching Mary how to say things in Vietnamese. "Xin chào, Kim," said Mary. "Xin chào, Mary. Is there any mail for us today?" "Only bills, I'm sorry to say." Mary knew that would make her dad grumpy. Then Mum would say, "Oh, no need to get your undies in a twist. Take a deep breath and have a cup of tea." Kim told Mary that he was sorry he couldn't stay to teach her a new word. He was very busy organising sending home Christmas gifts to Vietnam for all his nieces and nephews. He had a date with the internet. Mary said goodbye to Kim. "Ciao tu bit, Mary." And he was gone, leaving only a cloud of dust. Mary was puzzled. Sending gifts by computer? She raced back inside. "Mum! Can I please get on the internet?" Mum connected her online, and Mary typed in the words, "Send a gift sheep." Up came the site for ChildFund. Wow, what a coincidence. That was the same organisation that Auntie worked for. This was meant to be. Mary found out on the site that she didn't have to send over a sheep from New Zealand. She could donate some money instead to gift a sheep. Brilliantissimo!
Chapter 10. 6 weeks had passed since Christmas and Mary was back at school. She had a new teacher, and Roger, the boy who'd asked to marry her at the end of last term, had changed classes. Mary was relieved about that. She'd turned him down, of course, but Roger was still sulking about it. One day after school, Mary was playing outside with Rosemary. They were chasing Tibbles the tabby around the garden. Tibbles wasn't impressed by the shenanigans. It was February and hot, and he wanted to find a shady place to lie down and sleep. Mary could see Tibbles had had enough, so she and Rosemary went for a long walk up the driveway to see whether Kim, the rural delivery driver, had been passed with the post. Sure enough, inside the letterbox was a strange-looking envelope, all crinkled and covered in unfamiliar-looking writing.
And what's more, it was addressed to Mary. She opened it up and started reading the carefully handwritten note. Dear Mary, I'm writing to you this day to thank you for the wonderful gift you have given our family. The sheep you gave us is big and covered in wool, which we can use to keep us warm. And she's provided us precious milk for our family too. You will never know how much your gift has changed our lives. Thank you, Mary. With very kind wishes, Miunda, aged 9, Zambia. Mary couldn't believe it. A boy her own age had written to her all the way from Zambia to thank her for the sheep. She could never have imagined how one sheep could mean so much to a family in Africa. Mary smiled. She started thinking. The sheep she gave to Miunda and his family had been wrapped in her love. But the really amazing thing was that by giving something special to someone who really, really needed it, Mary felt wrapped in love too. The end.
You've been listening to Mary's Christmas Yarn. To find out more about ChildFund Gifts That Grow and Rosemary the Lamb's cousins in Africa, please visit childfund.org.nz. And from all of us at ChildFund, we would like to thank the following artists for their wonderful contributions: Carol Hirschfeld, Alison Quiggin, Miriam Akama, Jim Mora, Jude Dobson, Janet Wilson, Jeremy Corbett, Jackie Brown, Daniel Cormack and Hilary Barry.